Hey, how you doing? Well, I'm going to do my segment for today on big ideas, and I'm going to introduce to you a book. Actually, I'm going to just introduce an essay to you, but it comes along with this book, at least, the autobiography of Andrew Carnegie. Some people say Carnegie, but I actually believe it's pronounced Carnegie. And then his essay on the gospel of wealth, and that's what we're going to pay attention. If you didn't know, Carnegie made his fortune. He literally started out as a poor immigrant from Scotland and then became a multi-millionaire, and that's what the first part of this book is all about. All of his story of everything that he did, and all the deals he made and all the money he made. But the interesting thing is then he wrote this little essay. It's only that big compared to all that. That was called The Gospel of Wealth. And this became so controversial. People hated this essay, and people hated Carnegie. At least the wealthy did. And what he was doing, and here's his big idea, was asking the question, why is it that some people are wealthy and some people are not? Or even the bigger question, what should the extremely wealthy do with their wealth? And he had a fantastic answer. And some of you know his name from places like Carnegie Hall. It's Carnegie Hall, but most people, again, pronounce it Carnegie. And this is a place that is just a wonderful place that people can come. And if you're a famous musician, you will often get invited to perform there. If you go on the East Coast, all over the place, you'll find that there are libraries and community centers that all bear his name. Now, the reason for that is because even though he was a multimillionaire, he gave away over 90% of his wealth. And here's what he wrote at the very beginning of this little essay. The problem of our age is the poor administration of wealth that ties the brotherhood that still may bind together the rich and the poor in harmonious relationship. The conditions of human life have not only been changed, but revolutionized within the past 100 years. In the former days, there was little difference between the dwelling, dress, food, and environment of a chief and those of his retainers. So remember, he's Scottish, and so they had lords and chieftains of their tribes, and his point is that the wealthiest person, or the person who had the most influence in a society in the past, lived maybe just a little bit better than the people who served them. In other words, there just wasn't a lot of material difference between these two people. But he goes on to say that all that has changed. Now there's a huge and sometimes incredible gap between the poor in the society or the poor in the community and the wealthy of that community. And the question is, why is that? Now, the common answer today is it's because the wealthy people are wicked, and they've acquired their wealth through wickedness by lying and cheating and taking from other people. So that's one particular view. Marxism is basically, and communism is basically built on that idea that the wealthy are always the worst. They're terrible. All they do is manipulate. All these people work for them. They get a little bit, but the wealthy, they take basically from the work of the workers. It's a very persuasive argument. I'm going to grant you that. But the problem is that when you try and implement communism, you pretty much have the same thing, only worse. Usually the very, very top, political people are incredibly wealthy and everyone else is in poverty. And the society isn't very stable because they're not honoring the right things. Where we've noticed that capitalism, which has a lot of flaws, a lot of problems, still is able to raise the elevation for just about everybody in society, so that the poor may be poor, but they're not starving. And the poor might be a lot poorer than other people, but they have a lot of privileges that poor people in the past didn't have. So everybody's kind of gotten a bump up. But Carnegie is not saying that you should be satisfied with that the wealthy should just live in opulence, and that's good capitalism, and the poor, what can they do? They have no power, they have no ability to get out of their situation, so just leave them stuck down there. What he basically does is he realizes that, and we can argue whichever way, through happenstance, through ability, through a combination of both of those things, luck and smarts, that some people can produce great amounts of wealth. And very often, in the production of this wealth, they're bringing the whole society, the whole nation, to a better place. So I'm just going to use a modern example. I'm filming this on an iPhone. Before, I would need a studio, I would need expensive microphones, I would need huge cameras, and all kinds of other equipment just to do something like this. But now I've got something in my pocket that not only films videos, but does all sorts of things. But in making this a convenient filming process for me, the people of Apple have made an immense amount of money, and Apple is an incredibly wealthy company, and the CEOs and the leaders of Apple are incredibly wealthy people. So that seems unfair. But wait a minute, if we don't allow the people to make money when they have really good ideas, like creating cell phones and smartphones, then we're not going to have the smartphones. And so that's what happens when you cut off the capacity for people to make wealth, to be creative and be rewarded. And the most creative sometimes are rewarded so extravagantly that it's opulent. Now, his big idea is this, and I'll say it my way. He doesn't say it exactly this way. God has allowed certain people to be incredibly creative and to create wealth, but they are to use this wealth for the betterment of their entire community. So let me say that again. Either the wealthy are wicked, we need to do away with them, and there's a problem, because if nobody is wealthy, then everyone is poor, and nobody has any motivation to do anything, because it'll just be taken from them and then given to everybody else. But if you allow people to be wealthy, then you have to also challenge the wealthy to give the vast majority of that back to the community. So that was his big idea. So the problem is that how many millionaires or billionaires are going to watch my video? Probably very few to none. So let me put this in your lap and my lap, because I think that his big idea can be expressed in a lot of different ways. Some people are just gifted in all sorts of things, and they should certainly enjoy their gift, and they should enjoy the fruits of that gift. But this is where it links into Jesus' teaching. If you try and keep your life all to yourself, you try and keep your gift all to yourself, keep your money all to yourself, it's not going to be worth what you think it is. That selfishness of drawing in actually depletes value from everything that you have. But if you begin sharing your gift, even generously, without asking for anything back, then what Jesus says is that it will multiply. So this is in his teaching of storing your earthly treasure in heaven. He talks about, giving away your goods, your money and other things to the poor, so that, you'll be richly provided for all eternity. These are interesting teachings of Jesus, but what he's really challenging people, and these are anybody who has, it's not just the very wealthy, anybody who has anything. Say, if you have a little bit, share the little that you have. If you have a lot, share a lot more of what you have. If it's kindness, share it. It'll grow. And so Carnegie discovered this. Now, I mentioned this before, but when people heard his ideas, and look at this essay, there's hardly anything to it. There was such a controversy and a scandal, because the idea of giving up your money and doing something like creating, the concert halls and lots of libraries and schools and community centers and all sorts of other things, so that people in your community and your society and your nation can be better off. There were a lot of wealthy people that didn't like that. And I think the same thing is absolutely true today. That the call of generosity, which is so life-giving, not just for other people, but for us, it is so controversial. It seems to be the natural way, and I'm going to say it this way, of sin, that we want to be selfish. And the challenge of his big idea is, the ways that God has allowed you to be great not just for you, but share your greatness with everyone around you. There are going to be lots of billionaires, Lots of millionaires that will not be remembered in 10 years, or 20 or 30. But my guess is as long as those buildings stand, Carnegie will be remembered. And I hope many others will read his essay. That's your big idea for the day. God bless you. He loves you. There's nothing you can do about it except live in it.